thank you. As Suzanne mentioned, my presentation is Mail Robbery and Military Conflicts, a 200-year period from 1745 to 1945. Well, we need to think about the mail system from around the world and what happens. And security in the early days certainly wasn't very good. And it's still not very, very good. That's the sad part today, because there's so many mail robberies, particularly in the United States today. But as far as this presentation is concerned, mail robbery is basically very scarce, if not rare. When I say not rare, I'm talking about the mail robbery that's physically taking place is getting more common. But the evidence of the mail robbery is what's rare, and that's the cover. And that's what we're going to talk about in this session this evening. So most of the mail robberies that take place where mail is stolen, generally speaking, most of that mail is completely destroyed, whether it's burned, buried, or thrown in the ocean somewhere. So that's why the mail covers are so very scarce from the robbery themselves. So why does mail robbery take place? Well, two common reasons is for valuables, theft of valuables or money. And certainly if during wartime that we're going to talk about is primarily for intelligent information. And those are the two main situations for mail robbery. But in the 18th and 19th centuries, there was less of it because it was punishable by death. And certainly that's why there are so few robberies recorded during these earlier times. The U.S. Postal Museum, in a prior exhibit several years back, mentioned that there's as many as 3,000 mail robberies in the United States in a year, with only about 10% of the robbers being prosecuted, which is a pretty small percentage of the thieves getting convicted, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to understand that during wartime, special mail systems take place. And there's a very interesting mail delivery system, you might say, a movie called 6888, which was a movie made here in the States, and it's on Netflix. And it shows that during World War II, the difficulties of sending mail to military personnel from around the world. It's an excellent movie, and I recommend everybody that's listening to me to maybe see if they can see the movie as well. Just a little early history. During the Indian-Afghan War in 1839, this was a very rare letter that was sent by George Ramsay, the brother of the 10th Earl of Dalhousie, and later Governor General of India in 1848. And basically, this letter was to his sister, and it was talking about robbing of the mails by the Arabs. And this was acknowledged regarding the occurrence of mail robberies. The letter also mentions details about the Afghan War. So this was a rare dispatch that went overland dispatch and on a first steamer via Bombay for foreign mails. It's a framed oval hand stamp in red ink is noted in the top right corner. It's a little light, but it's there. Just an interesting historical cover. And today you can still find many covers where the actual letter describes mail robbery that may have taken place in that period of time, in that city or in that country. And they're nice to find and put with a collection. I like to say that postal history is not complete in anybody's collection without at least one mail robbery, or one mail robbery letter or official cover that's been recovered from a robbery. So I like to give everybody the opportunity to try and find them, because it's a wonderful thing if you can find them. Well, here's another similar situation. This is in Ohio, 1840, where a cover from Zanesville, Ohio was sent to London. And it was discussed that there were a lot of letters sent during this period of time, but unfortunately, most of them were never received. This cover that was sent on 3rd February was received, But in the letter, it was noted that many letters were miscarried as the Easter mail was robbed on 14 November 1840. So it was also mentioned that several other mail robberies took place in England during this period of time as well. Well, this is just a introduction to mail robbery and military conflicts. You can see the Boers during the Boer War in South Africa taking positions against the British in this particular picture. But this was also from a cover that had on it these infernal Boers have collared another male, hang them. So all of my letters of November 24th may turn up. This is, I apologize, it says won't turn up, but may turn up. So this was an interesting correspondence that took place, and I thought I'd just present it to you as part of the introduction to mail robbery and military conflicts. This is the oldest recovered mail robbery cover, to my knowledge, in existence. It's from the Jacobite Rebellion, and it's 1745. Interestingly enough, it was sent from Scotland to London, and it was sent to an individual by the name of Alexander Hamilton. Of course, I don't have to tell you how thrilled I was to find a cover addressed to Alexander Hamilton, particularly the one in the United States. But unfortunately, this was not the one in the United States. He wasn't born until 20 years later. But in either case, it was a real find in this particular situation. But this was during the Jacobite War. And the reason, and this was, as I mentioned, addressed to Alexander Hamilton, who lived in London. And we can go through the whole area, but there's really there's 3 of these covers known. And if you look on the bottom, right here, you can see opened by the rebels. And here it is upside down because I had to twist the cover so you can see the address here. There are 3 of these covers known. They're all a week apart, and they're all to the same individual. And that's probably why they survived. One of these letters is in the Bath Museum in London, or outside of London. And they're all very similar, but they're all signed, opened by the rebels, but in a different handwriting. And I thought that was very, very interesting to see what was taking place. As I mentioned, the Jacobites at the time actually surrounded a post office and evaluated all the mail coming and going. And that's where this took place. There's there's outside of myself in private possession of this cover. There's one other European collector that has one, and then the third one is in the Bath Museum. So we can talk about mail robberies and military conflicts. And if we go to the U.S. Civil War in 1863, the U.S. Civil War went from 1861 to 65. But just before I talk about this particular instance, well, I'll just talk about it anyway. This is the only known cover that went through the Postal Service during the Civil War that was recovered by or opened by the rebels. So it was stolen mail in 1863. You can see on the top of the cover here, opened by the rebels. There's a couple situations where this may have taken place historically. One was off a ship where it may have been recovered with the mail. It's really difficult to know, but there's two overall theories about what took place with this cover. It's also interesting to note that during the U.S. Civil War, there was a lot of mail stolen from both the Yankees and the Southern armies in the United States. And those recently came to auction a couple of years ago on Siegel's auction house. And they weren't physically through the mail, even though they went through the mail, but they were stolen off of the bodies of dead soldiers. And this is something that occurs in every war. where mail is physically stolen from the private person who may have been killed or who may have been held up, you might say, during the situation of the war. So this is a very unusual cover, very rare cover, and fortunately, I have this in my possession as one of my covers. Talk about unusual military conflicts. This is one in Rhodesia in 1896. This was the Shangani Rebellion, and stated 21 March 86. The cover was sent from Umtali, addressed to London.
Yeah, Steve, you got the wrong one showing. This is the Shanghai cover.
Yeah, Shangani. This is.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was Shanghai. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay, Ken. No problem. Anyway, this was a very rare cover. There are two of these known. This is probably the nicest of two of them. It was sent, as I mentioned, from Rhodesia, which was Zimbabwe at the time. And this, as you can read here, recovered from mail stolen by the rebels at Shangani. Initials are P.O. Bull, which was the contents. Contents were missing, but the cover was duly delivered to London with an arrival back stamp dated 11 July. The cover left Umtali the day the Matalbi Rebellion broke out. And this was a coach that was attacked by the rebels between the Gwillo and Bulawayo and abandoned by the occupants near Shangani. So the coach was looted by rebels and the mail was scattered over the road. But as I mentioned, two of these covers are known to exist. Second Boer War, 1899 to 1902, was a very prolific war when it came to mail robbery. There's a lot of covers that are known to exist. But when the Boers attacked the British in 1899 in the South African areas, it created a lot of theft. Particularly, the Boers were stealing from trains and coaches and other private delivery services at the time. This is a couple interesting covers during this particular period of time. I have a number of them to show you. But this was taken from a Boer wagon, which was captured on the 10th of May, 1901. And these are two very scarce covers because they're so early in the Boer War period. Well, farms and homes in this period of time, and certainly in the region, they were entered by the British. The British was breaking into the Boer residences and farms and stealing whatever they can steal. So both the Boers and the British were both stealing from each other, and so it created a lot of interesting covers. And I'll show you several of them. But this was posted in a cover from Volksrust to Stroom on 22 June of 1899. But the markings that we see here on the cover, you may not be able to see it very well, but it basically says another moke, another moke, and the property of surrender of a burger Dalamantua. I hope I send that appropriately. Another Boer cover that was stolen by the British. And you can see here, this was found in the wrecked Boer wagon near Orange River in that period in that area. And these are pretty scarce covers. And this is the actual physical writing that was put on the cover when it was found. These are stampless covers, as you can see, very early a lot of the stamps were stolen from the local post offices in the region. And it's nice to find something stampless and also stolen at the same time. So this is another interesting cover from the Boer War period of time or of conflict. Another one stolen, very similar. The rubber stamp was badly reworded. You can see here the rubber stamp, which basically states that recovered from mails looted by the Boers on June 8th. The interesting thing about this is June 8th was not when it took place. It took place on June 7th. So actually the rubber stamp was made with the wrong date. And this is a fairly common cancel or common auxiliary marking on these covers. Another interesting cover, also mail looted and burnt by the Boers. This cover was addressed to a private in the West Riding Regiment African Field Force, and apparently it was addressed to a general hospital in Pretoria. But the letter was among mail captured by the Boers and shows signs of burning that took place in the field called the veld from mails looted and burnt by the Boers. And this was, I guess, the postal official in Pretoria making the notation on this particular cover. Two more covers, very similar. This was during a Rudewall military conflict, which had the Boers surrounding the British at a post office area on the field. This is, again, early in the war. And what's interesting about this particular cover is the cancellation is dated 22 cancel. This one is a 35 cancel. Both of these were cancels at Rudewall when it was in siege by the Boers. So it was very interesting. I'm showing you both of the different cancellations. You can see 22 here, I believe, and this is 35. So these were the cancellations that were very interesting in this particular period that took place. Again, Boers loot the mail in 1900. Another interesting auxiliary marking. These are, and you notice again, the stamps are not available. So again, this is mail or recovered from mail looted by the enemy. And it was applied, the back stamp was an army-based post office, Cape Town, on the back is also applied. So this is another kind of badly damaged cover, but and also by stamps are not available during this period of time. Like I mentioned, a lot of this postage stamps were stolen from the post offices. Another one, it's very similar. Again, this one has a stamp on it. And again, this was in June 13th, 1900. Again, recovered mails looted by the enemy. And these are British covers and British mail that was stolen by the Boers. When you see writing on these particular covers, these are extremely rare covers in this particular period of time. Here you can see the writing here. And it was recovered from the wreck of the looted convoy by the Boers September 1st at the Klip River. And whoever had a writing at that time was not bad handwriting, actually. But there was a full-scale war that started after October 1899. Peace was not signed with the Boer War in South Africa at the time until 1902. Interestingly enough, a lot of Boer mail and military mail from British was held till 1910. So it's a long time after the war, even though the war was signed, peace was signed in 1902, May 31st, 1902. Again, another interesting auxiliary marking included in mail bag lost on Cape Railway and recovered. The Cape Railway was attacked by the Boers, where they went through much of the mail, took what they wanted, and also wind up burning a lot of the mail as well at this period of time. So this is a nice and auxiliary marking describing mailbag lost at the Cape Railway and recovered. Boers rob mail at Oostdorn, one of the towns around Cape Town. This is nice because it actually has an official letter from the post office describing basically what took place here. Again, you can see recovered from mail looted by the enemy. The town was delayed and looted by the Boers, but normal postal routes used by outshore post office were all subject to irregular service. And that took place from August to October of 1901 due to the activities of the Boer commandos in the vicinity, as I mentioned in the printing here. The routes were outshorn to George and outshorn to Moselle Bay, and all depends where the enemy was, or the British were, that the mail may have gotten through or got looted. But in this particular case, this mail was looted by a Boer commando near Prince Albert Road. And this is the printed letter sent with the damage letter to the addressee, Mr. J.J. Hill and Company in Cape Town, is also displayed. This letter is seldom seen from the Postal Authority, so it really makes a very interesting and scarce combination. World War I, 1914 to 1919. This is an interesting cover. This is in India. Actually, it was in Waristan, which is somewhere between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. And there was the British had a base there in World War I, and the Masood tribesmen did not like the British, so they used to raid the British when they could. They would come down from the mountains and steal whatever they could from the British. Well, anyway, delivery of this mail was delayed due to a mail robbery by the Masood tribesmen. This is an extremely rare cover, probably, again, the only one that I'm aware of. But here you can see actually the pencil marking captured, okay, where it was captured by the Masood tribe. And it was forwarded by the mullahs of Busarat Khan or Razmak. The mullah was the most likely associated with the Yatzmanzai Wazirs. A lot of interesting tribes here, a little difficult to pronounce, but in either case, the Masouds were very, very prominent, and they didn't like the British. And they would come down periodically, and I mentioned they would steal from the British. The British had a small force there during World War I, and again, this is the only known example from this hostility. And here you can see the other foreign writing, and it was addressed to a Captain C.S. Phillips. Very interesting cover. World War I has also a lot of mail robbery by the Germans capturing mail. A lot of the mail, most of the mail was captured by ships at sea. Here are two covers, one in pencil or pen, part mail captured, and this here again, parts of the mail captured by the Germans and displayed. These are two, and here's a nice little label due to a repair label on the cover. And these were covers from Poland and Denmark that were on a ship and that they were captured by the Germans at the time. The British steamer Appam captured by German raider Mo. German raider Mo was a like a bandit German military organization or unit. They didn't care who they stole, what they did. They acted kind of like on their own. But in either case, this is a cover that was sent on January 1916. Was carried on the British steamer Appam from Sierra Leone to Manchester, England, when it was captured by the German raider Mo. The steamer was carrying passengers, bullion, general cargo, mail, et cetera, from various countries like Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Togo, and so forth. But she was detained by the raiders as a prison ship. And it was interesting, and captured 60 miles north of Madeira on January 15th. After this, believe it or not, this cover was taken to Norfolk, Virginia, in charge of a German prize crew on 1 February and was auctioned off. And you can see some of the specific red notations here. Red MSS 766 notation is a prize court docketing number. And then there's a black numbers in here. Notation also describes the incident, and afterwards the U.S. government handed the mail and ship over to the British, back to the British, after it was auctioned, interestingly enough. Very unusual cover. Another one captured by the Germans. They all seem to be captured by the Germans, not too much by the British or the Americans during this period of time. But in either case, here are two similar covers again, also one from Denmark and one from Holland. And these are just part of the mail captured by the Germans. And here again is a label, and here is an actual stamp. Essentially, two similar covers. Next, please. There are many of these covers in existence, and they're not that difficult to find. So if you collect Germany or you collect British mail or anything, these are relatively inexpensive to buy. Again, another one with no stamps on it, but here's your special mail. Was often seized from neutral ships during the war. The mail posted in 1916 would only have been delivered after the cessation of hostilities in November 1918. So again, it's part of the mail that captured by the Germans. A lot of the mail was held in different areas of the country, and a lot of the mail was not let go until after the war was over. And this is the same thing that took place also in World War II that you're going to notice. This is Russian mail captured by the Germans. So the Germans had their hands in a lot of different areas, a lot of different parts of the world. And the auxiliary markings are pretty much all the same, part of the mail captured by Germans and delayed. Again, one interesting Russian covers, again during the war. This is a letter sent from the United States to Germany that was delayed by the British. It was held by the British. And I guess they felt that if it was delivered, it would have had some issues. So consequently, it was held and wasn't released until after the war, because there could have been something in here since it was addressed to Berlin. And they didn't want to send it to Germany or forward it on to Germany during the war. So I'm not sure if what was in it, probably not much, but again, released by the British military authorities. Again, very similar cover again. This was from Greece. It was captured by the Germans. It was on the ship SS Erosus when it was captured by German sub. This was captured in the Mediterranean, which is very rare. Again, the mail was released and held approximately 3 years till after the end of the world, or end of World War I. German censor label is noted here. Next slide, please. Again, another one very similar, also believed to be the only seizure of mail by the Germans in the Mediterranean period of time, Mediterranean Sea at this period of time. German submarines were very active. This is a very rare cover. The Swedish ship Arthur was captured. There's less than 10 of these covers known. It's in Danish. The not the sticker, but the label here is in Danish, talking about that the mail was stolen. German submarines were noted to attack Allied shipping and capturing the mails, besides whatever else they could whatever else could be stolen. A lot of the German ships would not only capture the mail, but they would take all the passengers off the ship and desert them on a deserted island and then sink the ship. So you might say they were kind of like, okay, we're not going to kill anybody. We're just going to steal the mail and sink the ship. I guess that was a little better attitude than shooting or killing everybody during this period of time. But these are interesting covers. Again, another sub captured by German sub, Amsterdam. And this is just part of the mail captured by the Germans and delayed. Again, a number of these covers and a number of German U-boats were out there sinking some of these ships. And as I mentioned, they steal the mail, they go through much of it, and if they find something of interest, whether it be jewelry, money, or intelligence, that's what they're really looking for. Otherwise, you're lucky to even find these if they didn't just sink all the mail after they went through it or burned it all. But there's still a lot from World War II, but not as much from World War I, as you will see. Again, Germans captured Danish mail, and you can see a nice label on the top covering over the stamps. Again, it was by sea raiders attacked the vessels. They felt it was another U-boat, and mail was taken as it floated through the sea. So apparently they did dump the mail, and much of it was captured in mail bags at that particular period of time as well. Again, similar. Again, same situation. Again, from Denmark, but part of the mail captured by the Germans and delayed. German torpedo boats capture the PTS Prince Hendrik. This was a torpedo boat. The mail was being transported by the Dutch paddle steamer Prince Hendrik when it was seized. And it was seized on the 19th of January, 1917. And it was taken to Zeebrugge, which is Brussels. A German military and English censor labels are applied on top and reverse. So this cover was readdressed on arrival in London in 14 April 1917. So it did reach its point intended, you might say, during a period several months later. A different conflict, the IRA rebellion, 1920, 1923, also had a lot of wonderful covers to collect. Here you can see two of those covers. The first one on the left was the 16th December 1920. It was a cover from Limerick to London that was delayed by IRA raiders stealing and opening the mail. And this was, there were some official seals that were applied, as you can see in the top here. And you can see the censor markings here by the IRA. In this particular cover here, you can see recovered from raided mail. And again, another label up here. That cover was from Skerries to London. And again, it was intercepted by the IRA and endorsed. And manuscript CIRA is also another censor marking that the IRA utilized. The letter was returned to the Irish Postal Authority when it received the cachet recovered from raided mail. An official post office seal was also applied. This is another interesting cover opened by IRA raiders. And you can see the markings here, and you can see the label that was due to repair. But it was, again, intercepted by raiders. And it has various markings on this cover from the British Postal Service. Next, please. Here you can see another label, raided mail correspondence. This was in Ireland, or from Ireland. A cover from Portrush, Cookstown was delayed by the IRA. Only 3 covers are known with this marking on it this year, delayed mail correspondence. It's a pretty rare marking. IRA burns Dublin post office. This was always excited to burn down a post office. Just think about the salvage mail that you might be able to get. Well, in this particular case, you didn't get much mail, and you didn't get many stamps because they stole the stamps before they burned down the post office. And that's one of the problems that was also seen in the Boer War as well. They would burn post offices and steal the mail or steal the stamps. I mean, but in either case, very similar with the IRA, very active group of people, you might say. And this was in the early hours of November 6th, where the IRA forced entry into the sorting office of the GPO in Dublin and near the rotunda. They spread petrol, set the building on fire. All official report records the loss of a great quantity of correspondence, and all postage stamps were either taken or burned. And here you can see one of the markings here, auxiliary markings. But these are fairly not rare, but they're not that common, and they're very nice covers to have in your collection if you collect Irish mail or you collect military conflicts of any kind. So this is a really nice cover. Train robberies, IRA raided a lot of trains. And again, you can see here recovered from raided mail. These were mail that was stolen. And when it got back to the British authorities, they would put these recovered from raided mail stamps on it. Again, here you can see CIRA censored by the IRA. And that was pretty much it for these two. World War II, 1938 to 1945. Germany, World War II covers. This is a pretty rare cover. It's a fairly large cover. It's addressed to Hamburg. It was being transported by the SS Scharnhorst, a merchant steamer with East Asia. The course of travel was directed via the Suez from Shanghai, China to Hamburg. A boxed cachet here that you see basically states that it arrived damaged and officially sealed at Frankfurt, Maine, Overseas Railway Post Office. Manuscript Inhalt von Andenham, Gerstoten. I can't pronounce it, I apologize. Contents stolen by the English were all applied on the reverse. World War II is regarded as started from 1 September 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. I guess there could be a lot of questions about that, but that's what I have. This cover is the earliest recorded example of disaster mail connected with this war. Photocopies of the front and back of this cover are shown. So this is not even my cover, but it's a very interesting cover to see. So Germans create numerous problems with mail robbery. The Germans in World War I created also a lot of problems. So I guess they get kind of used to creating problems with the mail. But in any case, this is a cover from Malloy to Oslo. And this is the Norwegian commentary, which basically states found among mail that has turned up after the acts of war. And the occupation of German troops caused many problems, as I mentioned, for the transport and treatment of mail, including mail theft. This is a very colorful cover. This was mail held in France by Germans. Germans took over France, as you know, early on in the war. And this was dated 7 June 1940. And it's an airmail cover from Argentina, which was carried by Air France. It was sent to a military captain in Merly in London. The cover was detained in France due to the German occupation. But you can see the nice boxed auxiliary marking here. There's also auxiliary markings similar to this, but detained in Hong Kong, usually by the Chinese occupation. And those are very scarce, but they also exist. which is a very nice cover to find. Again, another box auxiliary marking, France during German occupation. Much of this mail, as you see, where it was occupied or detained, was certainly gone through for any valuables and any information. But much of it was also not released. Here you could say much of the mail was often released about 5 years after the war ended. So a lot of this mail was kept for a long period of time, either even in German hands or in British hands, more so than American hands. Again, German raiders sink ships and capture the mail. Here's two similar covers from Australia. And these covers was on board the SS Triona, which was captured by the German raider ships Orion and Comet. This is a very active duo of ships, German raider ships that would steal for themselves during the war as well. But apparently they captured the ship about 200 miles south of Nauru. The passengers and 60 crew members were released and the ship was sunk. This is one area where they dropped all the passengers and crew on the island and then deserted them naturally. And then they sunk the ship. The mail was examined and put ashore at Emerald Island in 1940, in 21/12/1940. So there are possibly 10 items that have survived this incident. And other items recovered from this military incident are known to have auxiliary markings sunk by raider and recovered. Here you can see red pencil is this particular marking, auxiliary marking, handwritten marking that describes these particular covers. And these are extremely rare covers, maybe about 10 of them being known. This was another rare cover. This is the only one that I'm aware of. Again, this is a Norwegian cover where the British military actually raided Lofoten Islands, and the British forces seized a lot of mail. And this is, again, sometimes it is difficult to determine if a letter was stolen, even after being censored during times of war. But here's the marking, the Norwegian marking, basically talking about the stolen mail. Again, and it was opened by examiner. So it was had a lot of people opening it. But it's a very, very scarce cover, British cover. Well, you know, a lot of these ships during the wars and even in earlier days in the 1800s, perhaps, a lot of these ships were sold. Some were sold in Europe, some were sold outside of the United States. But in this particular case, these covers were basically addressed to Bulgaria, Latvia, and they were all sent by transatlantic mail. However, the mail at this time during the war, the letters and parcels containing materials such as stamps, coins, etc., was held in Bermuda after the war and sold by the prize court in Bermuda in this particular case, in a number of auctions held between 1946 and 1950. Well over 50 covers are known with a hand stamp released by the prize court, as you can see right here. Very interesting cover. And I find it's a very interesting stamp, Pony Express stamp, on the mail, and on this particular cover. And now talking about the Pony Express, there's a couple covers I will mention that I have not shown you, unfortunately, but they were stolen by the Indians in 1860 in the United States, when the U.S. Army was fighting the Indians in the Southwest and Northwest, you might say, of the so-called United States at the time. There are two known covers that were in a mail bag and carried by a delivery postal employee by the Pony Express riders. And it was stolen by the Indians that period of time, but they didn't know what to do with it. It was in a leather bag, what was called a Mozilla mail bag, or a pouch, you might say, used on a horseback. And it was recovered 2 years later in 1862. One of these covers is at the Postal Museum in Washington, D.C. And it's probably the only postal mail robbery exhibit that I'm aware of there. And I find it's very interesting that both the British Library, main British library, also has no mail robbery covers on exhibit. And the only one that's on exhibit in the United States mail postal history exhibit is on the Indian conflict in 1860, 1865 period. Very expensive covers. For example, this one in the museum in Washington, D.C. Sold at auction for about $360,000. So these are not inexpensive covers to put in your collection, but they are beautiful copies, and they're nice to see in the museums. This pretty much concludes my presentation. I'm sorry I couldn't show you those two particular covers. There's one other cover that went through England in 1942. Suzanne, I don't know if you got that cover or not, but
Yeah, I think I will have it. Let me just keep talking. I'll find it somewhere.
all right. Anyway, it was a very interesting cover that was sent locally in London from a U.S. military post in England at the time. And it was sent to another U.S. post outside of England. And it was stolen in a mail bag. And it was located in the streets of London. It was an interesting cover because during the wars, a lot of military can send mail not having any stamps on it. And they have the freedom of not necessarily putting a stamp on. And this was one of those particular covers, but it was recovered and it was someone picked it up on the street, the mail bag, basically. And it was, like I said, it was a U.S. mail cover in London going to another U.S. Military base. Here it is. And what I liked about it was apparently whoever kissed it with their lipstick, sending this letter off to hopefully be there safely. But you can see that it did have some issues. And here's their official seals from the U.S. Post Office. And here you can see it was recovered from stolen and rifled pouch. And this was military, going to a military APO base, U.S. Army, out of London. And here you can see the postage was free at the particular time. But you know, the mail robbery was certainly redirected from the censor, but I thought this was just a very special cover showing you the front and the back. This was dated December 28th, 1944, when it was recovered. It was sent, so it was missing for about 24 days before it was recovered. And then I got to the other base, I guess, in January the following year. Anyway, this presents some of the covers that I have to show. I'd like to thank you very much. And Ken Sanford was on the line. I always like to thank him. He's always helping me out with things. And we're very busy with the Wreck and Crash Mail Society. So that's another interesting organization that if you like interrupted mail, as you mentioned, my Devil's Mail collection that you had on exhibit at Stampex. It's, you know, we have terrorism and fires, earthquakes, any major disaster, including ships, planes, trucks, cars, etc. It's a very interesting organization, and we welcome anybody.
There are more Virtual Stampex talks coming to YouTube. You know what to do. Click subscribe now so you don't miss out. See you soon. We hope to see you at our next Stampex show. At Virtual Stampex or in person in London.